Kia ora and welcome to another video in this series aimed at teaching you how to play Riftbound step by step, hopefully getting you ready for your first Nexus 9. In today's video we're going to be doing another random deck review. Now there's two very big reasons why I'm doing these series in the teaching Riftbound, and that is because eventually we're going to be covering every legend. And maybe we'll cover them multiple times against different legends in ways to teach you how those legends interact with one another. While these videos are also there to be informative, hopefully they're also quite entertaining in showing you that even if you've played the game heaps, you're never going to get it perfect the first time you play. As such, never be afraid to play and learn and take risks when it comes to that learning process, because at the end of the day, Riftbound is about not only learning but just having fun, and if you're making mistakes but having fun, that is a perfect place to be. Obviously, not making mistakes and still having fun is perfect as well, but the central idea being learning is an important part of the process, but the process isn't going to be enjoyable if you're doing it in a way that isn't enjoyable. And hopefully through these videos I'm giving you an opportunity to see that there are different ways to play the game, maybe different criteria, or maybe just different strategies that pique your interest a little more. As I said, all the decks that I use will be linked in the description below. Otherwise, feel free to like and subscribe, and let us move over to the spin the wheel, not spiel the win. Maybe we'll see a win. And our first chosen deck for today will be... oh, it is going to be Reactive Ready Misfortune. This one comes from a Lochlan Myhill. As I mentioned, it will be linked below. And they will be going up against... what Misfortune are we going to see? Oh, it is going to be Renata Glasc. Now, Renata Glasc, this in particular one, is by tonybryank, once again, linked below. But the fascinating thing about, to me at least, Renata, is it is a legend that I do have a bit of experience with, but I have tried many times to make her work with very little success, unfortunately. This is going to be a different take on the Renata style. First and foremost, actually, if we go to Renata first, they are using the yellow Renata. Most people use the blue Renata as more of like a end of game win condition. However, yellow Renata to me is so much more exciting because of its ability. They are running the Vanguard Armory style, which means that the Renata Industrialist has all these enter ready, gold generation, as well as a few ways to control the tempo of the game. Blue Sentinel, of course, says when I hold, you can add power at the start of your next main phase. And the other new interesting card to see would be Plaza Guardian, which is a 10 energy 8 might that costs 1 less for each gear you control. Over on the Misfortune side, we have the tried and true acceleratable Misfortune that says the first time I move each turn, you may ready something else that's exhausted. Spirit Wheel is not something you see very often, but the Siren, and the Bullet Time are two cards that you do see quite often in a Misfortune. There was an incredible showing of Misfortune by way of in, I believe it was the Las Vegas, in which they had a combination of Temptation and alternative movement abilities in order to force the opponent to have all their units at a single battlefield, and then use bullet time to kill all of them. This does not look like that kind of deck. Instead, this looks like a hyper-aggressive tempo style orange-purple that doesn't focus on Aurora, which is quite nice to see, especially for Misfortune. Now, if we move over to the battlefields, I mean, Zorn Warrens is always such a very strong choice, but let's choose Candlelit Sanctum first. Or we could have gone Minefield, but let's go Candlelit Sanctum. As for the Renata Glasc, let us go Treasure Hoard, and begin by Renata choosing to go first and opening a mulligan, strong 2-drop, strong turn 2 play, pretty good gear, as well as getting the Jace in hand ready for the Vanguard Armory when it eventually shows up. So that will be a keep from her. And as for the Misfortune double traveling merchant gives one a turn 1 play and then a discard on turn 2, a turn to play through as well. Very strong. I'm liking the hand opening position from both of these. And we will move over to the spectator screen where we are already going to see the patched Porobot comes down. Now, patched Porobot says I enter exhausted because it is treated as a gear and a unit. A fun and quick way for you to identify whether something is a spell, gear, or unit is in the way that the border in the top right is looking. So if you notice on this one, it has a gear as well as a might symbol. For other gear, it just has the cog, and for spells, it has the little swirl. So if you want a really quick way of identifying something a unit, a spell, or a gear, you can actually just look up in the top corner, or obviously read the tag above the name, but in a glance, it can be quite handy doing it that way. I just realized that the points, there we go, the points were messed up on that one. Now the patched Porobot comes down, and they will pass over to the Misfortune, who will tap 2 to play the Traveling Merchant, and I'll just quickly go over the legends and what they're good for. So the Misfortune is Misfortune Bounty Hunter. Exhausts me to give a unit ganking this turn. Many people look down on this ability because while it is very strong, the number of ways to provide ganking, or the number of spells that essentially ignore ganking, such as Ride the Wind, is quite large. And so this is very strong in certain circumstances, but other people look to the other current red-purple combinations of Kha'Zix, of Sivir, and think that this could be a bit stronger. I personally do really like it, and I like her overnumbered as well. If you have not seen it, it's very cool. Over on the Renata Glasc side, she has a very complicated legend ability. When you or an ally hold, you may exhaust me to play a gold gear token exhausted. Great ability, especially in a 2v2 format, because you can combo your opponent or your friendly units with your abilities quite nicely. While your score is within 3 points of victory, so for this game it'll be 5 and onwards, your gold add an additional 1 energy. So with this legend ability, all gold when you're within 3 points of winning add 1 power and add 1 energy, which is incredibly powerful come later on in the game, or even just in general. But the trade-off for that is obviously you don't get it until you're a bit later on, and Renata often really struggles with trying to create those opportunities for herself to get so far ahead. Now I'm just going to quickly let's see if I can be a bit more specific. Oh, I cannot be very specific with that, so unfortunately I can't show you the overnumbered for the Misfortune, but that's okay because you can always look it up online if you're that interested. Anyway, now that we've had it done enough rambling, it is the Misfortune's turn to pass. Over to the Renata Glasc, who will begin their turn by moving their patched Porobot over to the Treasure Hoard. Now, Treasure Hoard says when you conquer here, you may pay 1 energy to play a gold to get token exhausted. On the movement trigger, the Misfortune is going to play for 1 energy, a gust on the patched Porobot. Now, if the Renata Glasc was dead set on preventing this from occurring, they could have attached the World Atlas to the patched Porobot in order to prevent it, but the Renata Glasc is going to allow that to occur. The Misfortune is now tapped out, and in response for 2 recycle 1, the Renata is just going to play Cull the Weak, which says that each player must kill 1 of their units, and the Renata's unit was just saved thanks to the Misfortune, so the Traveling Merchant will die, and then for 2 runes, the patched Porobot will see themselves come out. Now, it does mean that the Renata Glasc put herself back 1 rune for that tempo, but also prevented the Misfortune from scoring this turn. Now, for 3, they'll be playing out a Lucian Merciless, and then for 2, they will be playing out a Traveling Merchant. They have in hand a Repulse, which is a very strong unleashed spell in a niche manner. Choose a friendly unit at a battlefield, counter an enemy spell or ability that chooses it and no other. This can be very strong against multiple forms of damage, such as a falling star that is targeting it twice, such as a falling comet, such as a Riptide Rex, such as a hidden blade. Those types of abilities are just countered, and so Repulse is a really nice card to have in hand when you are preparing to go into combat. They will now pass as they are completely tapped out, and it goes over to Renata Glasc again, who will once again, well actually this time they will tap 3 and then bring out a World Atlas. World Atlas is a gear that is also an equipment, which means it can be equipped for their cost, as you can see here, 1 blue rune, or 1 mind rune, I should really be more specific, which when equipped will give +2 might, and when they hold, play a gold gear token exhausted, play 2 gold gear tokens exhausted. The Renata Glasc is going to recycle 1 in order to group that onto the patched Porobot, making them up to a 4 might currently. They will now move into the treasure hoard, in which there is no response from the misfortune, and therefore the Renata will conquer. They will choose to forego the conquer ability of playing a gold gear token exhausted here, and instead probably heavily rely on the existence of their hidden blade in hand with the 2 runes available in order to either prevent the destruction of the patched Porobot, or they can kill it themselves if they wish to provide further resources to the wheelhouse. While they could play the Plundering Povro this turn, having this for the hidden blade and potentially getting 2 gold gear token exhausted next turn, as well as a point, is a very profitable endeavour, you may say. They will now pass over to the Misfortune, who will begin by moving their Lucian Merciless over to this battlefield and passing priority. Now, the Renata Glasc has a few bits of knowledge that they know. This is still readied at 2 might, and this, when it conquers, becomes ready at 3 might. They will obviously have the Candlelit Sanctum, which will allow them to look at the next 2 top cards of their main deck, which means that they can essentially predict which card the Travelling Merchant will draw when it moves in. This tells them that the likelihood that it will be a spell or a unit that is going to be very beneficial to them in this endeavour was likely. So maybe keeping the Hidden Blade for this is going to be more important. Or they Hidden Blade the Lucian Merciless and force the opponent to not conquer this turn and be left without the opportunity to predict and instead rely purely on the cards in hand. The Renata Glasc will say, while that is quite terrifying, it is not the end of the world, and as such I give the permission to pass, or I pass my priority, and the Misfortune will score 2-1. Now the other part, by the way, is obviously Misfortune can give a unit ganking this turn, which means the Lucian can come straight over. The Lucian will conquer, and therefore the Misfortune can look at the top 2 cards of their main deck and see one as a gear that says when you choose a friendly unit, you may pay 1 energy and exhaust this to draw 1, and the other is Punch First. We already have a Punch First in hand, so we're probably going to be looking to put the wheelhouse, not to hand. We will be looking to put the Spirit Wheel first and put the Punch First to the bottom of the deck. Then the Misfortune will exhaust herself to give the Lucian ganking, which you can now see with the little arrow symbol. And they will move over to this battlefield at 3 might. They will then, at their action speed, float 1 orange power and recycle 2 runes in order to play Punch First on this Lucian. That will put them up to 8 might this turn, meaning it is now 8-4. The Punch First will now resolve, and with 1 floating rune, it is also now worth noting that unfortunately for the Lucian, they have no way to pay for Repulse. They can only play another Lucian this turn. The Misfortune, the Renata will tap to recycle one in order to Hidden Blade the Lucian, which unfortunately does succeed and the Lucian will die, but the Misfortune now gets to draw 2 cards. The Misfortune will spend the 1 floating rune and an additional in order to play the Spirit Wheel, and then pay 1 more in order to stacked deck, looking at the top 3 cards of their main deck. See 2 Overzealous Fans, which are an incredibly powerful defensive card, and the Siren, which allows you to spend 1 energy and exhaust it to move a friendly unit at a battlefield to your base. We are going to put 2 hand and Overzealous Fan, and that will resolve, and then we will move the Travelling Merchant, allowing us to discard 1 card, which will be the Repulse, to draw 1 into a First Mate. And then for 2, we'll be playing out an Overzealous Fan this turn and passing. While there were a large number of alternatives that could have occurred that game, that felt the most organic for the way that that was occurring. And so yes, there will have been plenty of opportunities, such as moving the Lucian and the Travelling Merchant into this battlefield, having the increased might of 5 to 4, forced the Renata to Hidden Blade one of them, which could have then been repulsed rather than a punch first. But in a more organic manner, not moving benefiting yourself through having multiple units rather than potentially killing the Travelling Merchant for no reason, fear of a Hidden Blade, which even if you do get Hidden Blade, doesn't actually mean that it's a negative thing, because you get a draw 2 there's a lot of thinking that can go behind it, and at the end of the day, being able to draw 2 may have actually been more beneficial to the Misfortune than holding onto that Lucian and that punch first. But regardless, the Renata Glasc will hold, creating 2 gold gear token exhausted. Oops, sorry. I seem to have broken the game very temporarily. That is not great. Give me 1 moment. Sorry about that. So the Renata Glasc will now gain 2 gold for holding with the Patched Porobot equipped with the World Atlas, and an additional for the Chem Baroness, so she will now be exhausted to play 1 more gold token to the base. Now, the Renata Glasc has a few fun options. She could either, because the Patched Porobot is readied, either move it back home and just have that as their turn. They could also bring out Renata Glasc Industrial Mist, which allows all of future tokens to enter ready. Or they could look at holding this battlefield with the knowledge that in the worst events, the ganking ability of one of these 2 cards, most likely the Travelling Merchant, because a 2 might better on defense unit would not be a good ganking unit, will only be provided a benefit by way of whatever card they have to discard and draw. Well, there's a few options. There's another option, which is also to play out another World Atlas onto the Patched Porobot, increasing their might by an additional 2 up to 6. And I think that's going to be the best choice. So we're going to tap 3 to bring out another World Atlas. We'll then tap 2 more to play a Plundering Poro to the base as well, and then we'll recycle 1 Mind Rune in order to group that onto the Patched Porobot, increasing their might to 6 this turn. Well, for the rest of their life, as long as they've got those equipment attached. And the Renata will pass over to the Misfortune, who will draw into a Travelling Merchant. Now, unfortunately, in that brief interlude, what actually had to happen is I had to remake the game, so there may be some shuffling of the deck, which means that while everything has been trashed correctly, we maybe see some cards that we otherwise wouldn't have seen, and unfortunately that is maybe more of a start of an error of the fact that this is purely online. I don't know if you could correlate this to a mistake that may happen over the board per se, but anyway. The Misfortune has a fun little gamble they could play, where they play Lucian Merciless, move it to base, then use the first mate in order to ready the Lucian, and then exhaust this and pay 1 energy in order to draw an additional card. That is a play. They have also access to 5 might via the Way of the Misfortune here, but they're really looking for a strong measure of their possibilities, and so they'll begin by moving the Travelling Merchant back to base, discarding the other Travelling Merchant to draw into a punch first. They see the Renata is out of runes, and they see the writing on the wall. Now, for 1, 2, 3, they will play Lucian Merciless to base. For 1, 2, 3, they will now play First Mate targeting, not themselves, the Lucian, which will allow them to now pay an additional energy and exhaust that in order to draw a card and ready the Lucian. They draw into Bullet Time. Now, Bullet Time is a fascinating card. Bullet Time is a card that says pay any amount of power to deal that much damage to all enemy units at a battlefield. Now, for first instance, I always looked at that and went, oh, so you might say 6 and then the opponent disciplines. The reality of this card is it does not have to. You do not have to elect how much energy you are paying prior to resolution, which means that if the opponent decided to Bulletstorm from 6 to 8, you just increase the number of runes you recycle from 6 to 8 at resolution. Obviously, in this instance, Bulletstorming a single patched Porobot for 6 would give us no love. But it is really interesting to note. Sorry, I've just taken a bit of a break. I think we were talking about Bulletstorm. I, however, discussed that it would be pointless wasting on the patched Porobot because it's just 6 and we'd be burning more than half of our runes to do it. So instead what we'll do is we will move the Lucian in, and then for 1 energy and 2 body runes we'll be playing Punch first on our Lucian, increasing them to 8 might this turn. The Punch first obviously is an action spell that gives plus 5 might. That will resolve and it will be 8 to 6, and unfortunately for the Renata, the patched Porobot will finally see its demise, and the Misfortune will score to 2. They should actually be at 3 points, unfortunately, and the Renata will be at 2 points. I forgot to put the points in after the reset, so now the Misfortune is completely exhausted. They will bring back their overzealous fan because there's no point in keeping a 2 might when the Plundering Porro will most definitely increase their might enough to kill it if they so wished to fight there. But the Misfortune will pass, and the Renata will draw into a second Honest Broker. Now, we are going to see for 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1 gold token, the Renata Glasc Industrialist come out. Then, for an additional gold, they will group 1 of the World Atlases to the Plundering Porro, increasing their might to 4 at the moment. And then they will move in. On the move trigger, there is nothing, so that will pass, and onto the attack and defense, there is nothing the Misfortune can do. The Renata Glasc will not respond with anything, and as such, the Lucian will die. The Plundering Porro will create a Gold Gear token Exhausted, however, because of Renata Glasc, it actually enters Ready. And then the Renata has an option here. They can either spend their last 2 to play out an Honest Broker to the base. Well, actually, yeah, they will. They'll spend 2 to play an Honest Broker, but instead to the battlefield. They could have triggered this to create a secondary, another gold token, but we're not too worried just yet. They could then spend this gold token in order to equip the second Gold Atlas, or the World Atlas, to their Plundering Porro or their Honest Broker, increasing this to 4 and 4, so 8 at this total, regardless if it's a 6 and 2 or 4 and 4. But on the other side, we've got 2 here, 3 here, access to a Spirit Wheel draw through just targeting a unit with ganking. They've got access to an accelerated unit at 5 might, So having 8 here would at minimum force the opponent to kill, to burn, sorry, 5, their misfortune and the first mate. So what they will do is they'll burn this, but instead of splitting the damage, the might, they're going to put it all into the plundering porrow because they actually kind of want this to die. And if they can force the opponent into a position in which they must either kill the honest broker or plundering porrow, but they don't have enough might to, at most they will be sacrificing 2 units minimum to at least kill the plundering porrow, because there is nothing that they know of that can exceed that amount. With that, they will now pass. The misfortune draws into a flash. They will begin by utilizing the ganking target on the overzealous fan, triggering the Spirit Wheel's trigger by exhausting 1 energy in order to draw another card. They draw into Shadow Disciple. What they will now do is they will move their Travelling Merchant, discarding said Shadow Disciple, and drawing into a Nocturne, which is a bit of a shame, but it is what it is. There will be no response from the Renata, and as such, the Renata should have actually conquered for this battlefield, so they're at 3 as well. The Misfortune will conquer to 4, trigger the Conquer ability. Looking at the top 2 cards, they see that one of them is Repulse, which is quite nice, especially against things such as Hidden Blade, Wages of Pain, which are 2 very, or sometimes Deadly Flourish in the Renata, but those kind of spells are very, very prevalent in a blue or yellow. So we'll keep the Repulse, but we will put the Shadow Disciple to the very bottom of the deck. Next, we will, with 7 runes, for 1, 2, 3, 4, recycle 1, play a Nocturne to this battlefield. And we will pass. Why don't we bring out the Misfortune and find a way to clear this battlefield? Well, at the end of the day, we are ahead on point tempo, which will force the Renata to come into our territory. And there's nothing stopping us from slowly building up a base. In this case, the ganking from the Nocturne, the available ganking from the Bounty Hunter, the acceleratable ganking Misfortune, which means that any time we can continue really building up this battlefield with no worry about shorthanding ourselves into losing out because we decided to put too much in one. But that will be the end of that, and the Misfortune will pass over to the Renata, who will gain a gold for their legend ability that will enter ready, and 1, 2, 3, 4 from the 2 World Atlases. They will all enter ready because of Renata Glasc Industrialist. To tidy up the base, we will 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and we'll increase that to 6. So with the new TCG Arena stack, you can actually see that there are all there, and we can split them however we wish. So if we wanted to do a 4-2, we can do that, but we're not going to worry about that for now. We will now, we've actually drawn into an Ornn Forge God, which is a unit, a unit that has Deflect 2, Weapon Master, which will be very handy in a short moment, and I have +1 for each friendly gear. That includes tokens, by the way. So currently there are 6 gold and 2 World Atlases, meaning there is 8 gear, which means Ornn is already getting +8. When he enters for Weapon Master, he can equip an equipment that may be already attached to another unit for 1 power less, which means the World Atlas can immediately jump over to him, giving him +2, meaning that he will immediately become a 12 might unit with Deflect 2. And believe it or not, that is exactly what is going to happen. We're going to see an Ornn the Forge God come to this battlefield, an immediate grouping of the World Atlas onto the Ornn for free, and his might increase from 4 to 6 because of the World Atlas, and then an additional, no, keep those grouped, of 4 to 6 for the World Atlas, and then an additional 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, which would be 14. No, yes. 1, 2, plus 6, 8, plus 2, 10, 14. Here he has 14 might. The other plundering Poro kind of wants to die here to remove the World Atlas from him. So he will move back. And then for the last two, we'll play out another Honest Broker's battlefield and pass. It is now the Misfortune's turn. They draw the repulse that they really wanted to see, but they also see the Renata is out of runes, and they're now going to do the math. The Ornn does make things a bit more difficult, but like I said, they know that the opponent has to fight them at Candlelit Sanctum in order to win the game. They are going to begin by tapping their Misfortune to give the Travelling Merchant flanking this turn. Then they'll spend one energy and exhaust the Spirit Wheel to draw one this turn into a Rebuke. Now this is going to be a bit of a double-edged sword. You can spend 2 energy to power, return a unit to its owner's hand from a battlefield. The Ornn has Deflect 2, which means that if we wanted to rebuke the Ornn, it would be a 2 energy for power. That would cripple our board state for potentially a very small return of conquering the treasure hoard. However, it would put the Renata Glasc on quite the back step because now they have no Ornn, they have no control of treasure hoard, which means they are no longer gaining gold through the Kim Baroness, and they're not holding with World Atlas, which means they're not getting gold that way either. This trade-off is very important, and as such, for 1, 2, recycle 2, and then pay 1 orange floating, and then create 1 floating power. To pay a second power, we will rebuke the Ornn back to the owner's hand. The World Atlas will go back to base because it is gear, it does not live in the battlefield. That will resolve. Then the Travelling Merchant will move over to this battlefield, getting rid of the repulse and drawing 1 as the move trigger. A combat will begin, and then for 1, 2, they will play, for 1, because they're floating 1 energy, a Grim Resolve, which gives the Travelling Merchant +3 this turn and gain 2 experience. And the Travelling Merchant will go up to a 5 for that, meaning it is now a 5 to 2 2s, so 5 to 4. And that will resolve with the 2 Honest Brokers dying, creating 2 gold. We will now put those 2 gold onto the greater stack, so it is now 8, and they will die. Now the Misfortune could spend 1 gold in order to, or 1 energy to create a gold, which could be very important, and they will do so. That will create a gold in base. The next thing that will happen is an Overzealous fan will move to the Candlelit Sanctum to act as a defender, and the first mate will move over to the treasure hoard as the first mate, the Travelling Merchant goes down to 2, so there's 5 might here and 6 might here. And they will pass. It is now the Renata's turn, and they draw into Plaza Guardian, which costs 1 less each for each gear you control. Currently the Renata holds 10 gear, so this is now free, and so for free they will be playing the Plaza Guardian to base. They have 6 might on their Plundering Horror, and they see that the Misfortune has 3 runes up. Unfortunately to them, they have no very good choices of units to play, and as such they're going to just consider the Jace at this moment to be not there. The Ornn will be very strong, but only played to a battlefield, especially because the Misfortune is about to go to 7 points next turn, which means they only need to hold 1 battlefield, or they can move back and conquer a battlefield. Go back and hold 1 battlefield. With the amount of ganking they have, that is a very strong opportunity and possibility. The Renata is going to begin by moving their Plundering Poro with 6 might into the Treasure Hoard, which will be 1 more than the First Mate and Travelling Merchant, and the Misfortune is now going to spend 2 in order to flash to bring those 2 units back to base. The reason we're not just letting them die is because, well, why would you? On the move trigger, however, we must now move one, discard one. So in reality, the better play is actually to leave the Traveling Merchant here and keep that one card, and that is what will happen. That is a on hindsight thing, and most of the time a game will be very the opponent will be very understanding that that is the better course of events for you, and that they are forgiving for it. The Renata will now conquer and score 1 point. They will create a gold through the Plundering Porro, and they will also create an additional gold through the Treasure Hoard by paying 1 energy, and that will come in ready. Then for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, they will play the Orn Forge God to this battlefield, which with Weapon Master will immediately take the World Atlas from the Plundering Porro, reducing them back down to 2. I just realised it would have been, so we do have to recycle 1 floating rune in place of equipping the second World Atlas, because that Plundering Porro should not have been a 6, it should have been a 4. So we'll just pretend we equipped the World Atlas prior to, and the Orn took one of the World Atlases. The Orn will go up to a 6 for the equipped World Atlas, and then for 1, 2, 3, 4, plus 8, which is 4, 12. So let's just tidy this up very quickly. Get rid of these 2 gold, add them to the main stack. So now we have 10, 11, 12 equipment, and then 2 might here, so 14 might increased on. That means it is now an 18 might Orn. Then what will happen is it'll be a pass. I'll say, you know what, it is what it is at this stage. The Misfortune scores to 6 and realizes that they probably won't be able to get rid of this Orn very easily, because while Bullet Time can do a lot of damage, it's probably not going to do what it needs to do. So they will move the they'll keep the first mate here, and they will give the Overzealous Fan ganking this turn, triggering Spirit Wheel and drawing 1 and 2, and a Shadow Ordered Disciple. Then for 2, they play the Shadow Ordered Disciple to that battlefield. Then they move the first mate to that battlefield as well. I'll just tidy up the experience counter too. And they will pass. They will say, while it is very handy having control of both battlefields, the existence of the Orn is not friendly. And we finally see the combination that this Renata deck kind of was focusing on more heavily, I realized, looking at it earlier. The Jace Man of Progress is a very interesting champion unit where it says, when you play me, you may kill a friendly gear. In this instance, it will be a gold. If you do, you may play a gear with energy cost no more than 7 from hand this turn, ignoring its energy cost. You must still pay its power cost, however. Vanguard Armory is a 7 energy, so it fits within the requirements. 1 power, so you still have to pay the 1 power. But that means for 4 energy, you can play the Jace and Vanguard Armory. So, beginning, we will get 2 gold for the 2 World Atlases, so that's 4 gold there, and an additional gold for the Chem Baroness. So that will exhaust, we'll make a gold there, and then we'll gain 4 more, which means that our total gold will be 15. And we'll just do it tidy like that. Then for 1, 2, 3, and a gold, and the reason for this is because gold, now that we are above within 3 points, because we go up to 6 this turn, actually count for energy and power. And if we're having to spend a power anyway to play the Vanguard Armory, we might as well do both in one swing. So we'll make an energy through 1 gold and a power through the gold, play the Jace to base, who will then kill another gold to play Vanguard Armory, which is a gear, so it comes in ready. And then it will play 3 recruits because of the Renata Glasc ability, all tokens into ready, and they will begin by moving in 3 recruits. Now, why don't we just send in 2? Well, it's because if Overzealous Fan it dies, it can send one of the 2 defending attacking units back. So if we were to send in only 2, the Overzealous Fan would die, yippee. It would actually send 1 back, and so a 1 token would die for no reason. But in this situation, the Overzealous Fan dying would only send 1 back, 2 would remain, which would be enough to kill the Shadow Order Disciple. And if the Overzealous Fan doesn't die, we can kill the first mate, or still kill the Overzealous Fan for fun. In this realization, they realize that the worst case scenario is actually losing the Overzealous Fan, because they will lose 4 might in total, while not sending away the Overzealous Fan only loses them 3 might. As such, all 3 tokens will die, as well as the first mate. At this stage, if they decided to, they could also move in the Plaza Guardian for 8. Because, however, they did not kill the Overzealous Fan, they're probably better off moving in the Renata Glasc and forcing a death of the Nocturne and trying to keep the Overzealous Fan for the Plaza Guardian's move in. And that is exactly what will happen. The Plaza Guardian will move in, the Overzealous Fan will die, and force the Plaza Guardian back to base. This combination is it takes a lot of mental math, and over the board you might find it quite overwhelming. You'll want to make a quick decision, but be ready to slow down and relax. The alternative was even actually spending 1 energy and 1 power to kill all 3, but in some way, while this would be very good, actually it would have been a lot better. In hindsight, it would have been great, but it is what it is at this stage. But that will be that, and we'll do a quick recap. So we've got 13 gold, we've got another gear through here, so we've got 14, 15, 16 gear, plus 2 might here, 18, plus 4, 22 might now on the Orn. And with this in mind, we could move the Plundering Porro back, but it's better to have 2 units here because of cards like Rebuke existing, and as such they'll pass, and it is now the Misfortune's turn, who scrolls up to 7. They see the writing on the wall. They know that there's 4 might here, 8 might here, and 3 might every turn from here. The opponent has access to 15 might next turn, excluding the Renata Glasc. They need to have a way to prevent that from hurting too much here, and so they'll begin by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the gold in order to play their Misfortune regular, not accelerated, to this battlefield, giving them 11 might here. They will then use the Bounty Hunter to target the Shadow Order Disciple and spend 1 more energy to Spirit Wheel in order to draw Grim Resolve, which is a very nice choice, and they will pass. They'll say, you know what, this might be what I need. The Renata Glasc will also see the writing on the wall and score to 7. They will create 5 more gold, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, increasing their Orn by 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and they will tap 2 in order to play a Patched Porrobot. Now, Patched Porrobot says when you play me, if you control 3 or more other gear, draw 1. So we'll draw 1 into a World Atlas, and then for 3, well actually this also counts as a gear, so the Orn goes up by an additional. But for 3, we will play out a World Atlas, and we will immediately spend 1 blue rune in order to group it to the Orn, increasing it by 2 and a third for the fact it is a gear. And this 31 might Orn is going to be very chuffed with himself, because the Vanguard Armory is ready. We will create 3 more recruit tokens. They will all enter ready. And we'll look at what the best ratio is. We are going to have an 8 might Plaza Guardian move in, maybe alongside the Jace, and this will be 12 might against the 11 might here, forcing a response from the opponent. As such, we will move those 2 units in now, and if we do a quick review of the numbers, it will be on their top 12 might with the Jace and the Plaza Guardian. And then on the bottom side we have 5, 7, 11. They will pass priority, and so for 2 runes, a Grim Resolve will come out, targeting the Misfortune Captain, giving them +3 this turn. And they will gain 2 experience when they win combat. This will increase their count by 3, so it is now 14 to 12. and the Plaza Guardian will kill the Misfortune, and the Nocturne will die to the chase, meaning it will just be the Shadow or Disciple remaining. With this in mind, the Misfortune will pass and allow this to occur, and the Renata now has an option of going, well, I've got 3 recruits and this Shadow Disciple is worth 2 might. Currently it's looking very good for me, so what should I do? 41, 2. They will begin by moving all 3 recruits in, and in response, the Misfortune will tap 1 and recycle 1 rune in order to bullet time, and it says, pay any amount to deal that much damage. We have paid 1, we will deal 1 damage to all the recruits and they will die. That will resolve. It's also worth noting that it says enemy units, not all units, so the Shadow Order Disciple will survive. Then, for the end of that series of events, the Renata Glasc Industrial will move in, and it will be a 4-2, killing the Shadow Order Disciple, putting the Renata up to 8 points. Now, this was a very long best of 1, and I feel like going into another 2 games is going to be really intense, and so I might do a second follow-up video of these 2 decks. But in some ways this is exactly how Renata plays. She plays long games and she plays battles of attrition. The Misfortune, obviously I've misplayed a few times, but they were looking at 15 more cards in their hand or their deck, and you had the Renata Glasc with 25. With more draw, in fact if we now go back to spectators, with more draw the Misfortune was going to start seeing Maddened Marauder. When you play me, move a unit from a battlefield to its base, so this would have been perfect, but we unfortunately drew into the Nocturne instead, or the Shadow Order Disciple on our turn, the Grim Resolve instead of that. This would have been great to push the Ornn off and create a position where we actually would have won instead. Alternatively, going for more move-ins, more move-outs against these 2 would have been really strong. I went for too much of a hold on the Misfortune, but I mean, if we continue looking as we dig deeper, a switcheroo would have been fantastic. There were a lot of options available to the Misfortune that they just did not see. And if we look at the next 10 cards from the Renata side, we've got 2 Thousand Tail Watchers, 2 Hostile Takeovers, 2 Hidden Blades, a Premonition, Card Sharp, another Vanguard Armory. So both of them had these fantastic options coming through very soon, but unfortunately the game ended for both of them somehow too early. In a best of 3, obviously you would see a bit of sideboarding, but we're not going to do that for this video. I think that this one will not extend to an hour and a half. We'll cut this off at 50 minutes. But if you like what you see, please let me know and I will follow this up with a Game 2 and Game 3 of these decks. Otherwise, feel free to like and subscribe, and I will catch you guys in the next video.